Yeah, I'm not sure how the unions necessarily work, taking away the peoples and the store owners.
I don't know. I was just so distracted from the beginning of what you were saying. You want to legalize fentanyl. That's what I heard.
No, I think they should put the Neuralink into all of the migrants and put the AI program in there and let them work. Like I think that's going to be the closest we're going to get to everything being robotic and closer to a utopia, Tim.
I want to be supportive initially, but I have to recognize what this guy's saying, that California gets what it fucking deserves.
Oh man, that was a pretty good point.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It is another episode of the Swamp Creatures podcast. What's going on, Rob?
Oh man, nothing much. Just trying to enjoy a week off and gonna be on a job hunt soon. So
hell yeah,
see what happens.
Stop living off the government dime, yo. That's my money hard at work. Okay.
Yeah, just if you want to support me, it's GoFundMe at.
Anyways, we got a whole lot of stuff that we're going to talk about this week. Trump and Biden had a battle at the border. I don't know if you saw all that stuff, the dichotomy between the two, how they both kind of did what you would think they would do. And I don't think it went very well for Biden, but we'll talk about that. Congress narrowly avoiding yet another government shutdown once again. It seems like we go through this battle every couple months, it feels like. And this was another one that just barely went by. Also, I saw a story about a California sheriff who gave a press conference talking about how crime in California is not an accident. And he blames progressive policy and Democrat politicians. So something to watch there.
I thought you were going to say the whites. My bad.
Well, look, who are these progressive judges? Who are these politicians there? You're like half wrong.
Yeah.
You're not totally wrong. Also, soldier sets himself on fire in protest of the Israel conflict. That happened this week as well. And then our friend Javier Milei, he's got a message for the lawmakers down in Argentina. He's going to make changes with or without their support. So interesting stuff happening there as well.
Yeah. Oh, wait, do you have a drink? I don't have a drink.
Yeah, we're bringing back the 2-drink minimum, I think. Do you not have a drink? Is that what you're telling me right now?
I don't have a drink right now.
God fucking damn it, Rob. Yeah, I got a drink.
I would have to go get one. I have to go get one right now.
Nah, it's too, well, I mean, no.
No, it's okay.
We can do it. I mean, it's fine. Here, I'll drink all of these and the one I've already started just for you. Okay?
All right. Sounds good. Next episode, I'll have a bottle of something.
I'm pretty sure that's what you said last episode.
He's catching on. That's not good. That's not good for me and my strategy.
All right. So our first story, let's get into it. Biden and Trump at the border. Let's switch over here. Whoosh. Look at that. So fancy. Trump went to Eagle Pass this week. He made his announcement first that he was going to show up there. He spent most of his time during his speech criticizing the Biden administration. Some key quotes. You're going to do an impression? So it is. Some quotes that came out of Trump's speech. The United States is being overrun by the Biden migrant crime. He kept saying that. He repeated himself like 3 times, like saying, people say that. They say Biden's migrant crime. I say that, we've called it Biden's crime. When you hear that, just know it's Biden's migrant crime. It's all Biden's fault. The countless blood of innocent victims is on Biden's hand. That's another thing he said. And then he gave Gavin Newsom a new nickname, Gavin New Scum. That's what he said.
Oh, that's good. That's a solid one.
Did you get to watch either of the speeches?
No, I haven't. So this is going to be the first time reacting.
Oh, I don't have his speech pulled up because it's
okay. That's fine then.
Each speech is like 20 minutes. I mean, we could do it, but we'll be here for an hour and a half watching both of them. But basically, his Trump's was exactly what you would think. It's like he's like a comedian going on stage playing to the crowd. Like he shows up with very little material and then he just bounces ideas off of everybody else that's there. So he had Abbott, which was kind of weird seeing Abbott in a wheelchair. I don't know what the hell happened to him that he's in a wheelchair, but he's it's just weird watching Trump walk
when
around.
Did he get in the wheelchair?
I don't know, dude. I thought I never knew he was.
I thought he was abled.
Yeah, apparently
I don't know when
not,
he became disabled.
So it was kind of a weird thing watching him roll himself along the border. But the one thing that everybody's pointing out about it is the difference between Biden and Trump. How Biden went to Brownsville, Texas, which I guess is what his critics were calling a sanitized location for the event. Basically, everything's set up for you. It looks like everything's going great, but outside the city walls, everything is disaster.
And in Trump's speech, he's like, look, there goes one right now.
Exactly. Abbott's balls grew too big for his britches when he stopped listening to the feds. Yeah. Well, and that was the other thing that they pointed out. The difference between them two was, they go to the border and Trump goes to Eagle Pass where they have all the razor wire, the big standoff with the feds and all that kind of stuff that just happened recently. That's where it happened, was Eagle Pass. And so Trump's like, I'm going to go straight there where the action is. And then Biden goes meets in some fucking town hall area, like some, administrative building somewhere, and talks to all the local Democrats about, what they need to do. Biden's speech was basically, he started off the speech, you'll never guess, Rob. He started off the speech talking about climate change and how climate change is, leading to migration issues and, the forest fires and whatever else. Like, that's what's putting a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
Obviously. You go down to the border, you talk about climate change. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. So, yeah, he started off with that. I don't know if somebody kicked him in the leg or whatever, but he got over it pretty quick. Of course, all the right-wing outlets are focusing on that. Like, that's the big news story, that he just tried to turn it all about climate change. It was funny, but to be fair, it was like 3-4 minutes out of the 20-minute speech, so it wasn't too bad. He then goes in to talk about how it's Trump's fault that the border's so fucked up, because they had an immigration bill, they had this plan set forward that they were going to fix everything, and then Trump told all his homies, hey, don't go vote for that.
Well, if I remember correctly, Biden's first week in office, he was just on a executive order repealing and drafting witch hunt pretty much, and I want to say he took out a lot of executive orders that Trump had pertaining to the border and then made some as well. So I don't know. You're looking at two starkly different policies at the southern border.
That's what the news reporter was pointing out, was that when Biden first got into office, the very first thing he did was repeal a bunch of laws that Trump had put on the books to prevent the immigration. And now that things are going wrong, he's like, well, we need to do something to fix this. And Trump's and his people are just like, well, why don't you just roll back what you undid?
Mm-hmm.
We want to go back to our coverage over President Biden and former President Donald Trump's visits to the border. They both agree that the situation there needs to change, but their plans to reach that goal are very different. Definitely want to bring back Camilo Montoya Galvez from Del Rio, Texas right now. Camilo, thank you for talking about this, because a huge issue we know for voters here. Talk about the differences in the messaging between President Biden and former President Donald Trump regarding the border issue, and how is this being received by potential voters in Texas?
How do you think he's going to sound? Look at that guy. How do you think he's going to sound?
Slight accent. I think if you kind of set me up. Like
I think this guy. I will look. This
what
guy,
do you think? Does he have a deep voice or something?
As soon as he started speaking, all I could think was, this guy has some good DSL.
Oh no.
Good morning, Jared. The U.S.-Mexico border, as you know, has long
Look
been
at
at the
lips,
center
boy.
of this national debate over immigration, but it is also now front and center in the 2024 campaign for President Biden and former President Donald Trump came to the Texas border yesterday to essentially blame each other, Jared, for the country's intractable immigration problems and crises that have bedeviled Republican and Democratic presidents over the past 3 decades. In Eagle Pass, Texas, former President Donald Trump blamed President Biden for the record levels of illegal crossings here along the border over the past 3 years. He cited recent crimes committed by undocumented immigrants and called the situation here an invasion. We do have to underscore, of course, that there's no military offensive here, and the data that is available on this issue does not indicate that migrants are committing crimes at a higher rate than native-born Americans and U.S. citizens.
It's funny that he says that. When Trump handed the mic over to Abbott for him to speak, he said, this is a war. This is a war zone. We have our own immigration czar. We've set up our own paramilitary, basically, to deal with the situation. So it's funny that he makes all these disclaimers.
Yeah, Texas is going all in, at least from what I saw Abbott's speech, I think a couple of weeks ago, whenever he was talking about adding some updates to the different National Guard facilities and even creating new facilities down there. Not saying I'm for it or against it, but they're definitely throwing money at it. and kind of making it a priority for the state to be able to tackle this ongoing issue.
Meanwhile, in Brownsville, Texas, President Biden used that opportunity, his second border visit, to blame President Trump, former President Trump that is, for the collapse of a bipartisan deal in Congress that would have updated the U.S. immigration system for the first time since the 1990s. So these events were obviously very political in nature, but residents here in communities like Del Rio and Eagle Pass told us that they do not want political theater on this issue, Jared. They want concrete policy solutions.
He does kind of like hide those lips like better when he's not talking, you know? Like what you said, once he started talking, like I could not keep my eyes off that man's luscious lips. It was insane.
I was just thinking DSL.
That's insane.
This is another local news report, and then we'll pull off the videos for a bit. This video is what I was reminded of when you were speaking earlier.
All right, so the differences between President Biden and former President Trump really showed yesterday in their vastly different approaches to the border crisis.
Yeah, President Biden says they need more money. He needs Congress to pass sweeping legislation that would help him to fund more border agents, more immigration judges. Here's the thing. They both, on both sides, admit that there is a massive problem at the border, but they don't agree on how to solve it. President Trump will point back to what he did during his time, a number of executive orders, the Remain in Mexico policy. Now, some of that got caught up in the courts for years, and that made it less effective. But he points to the numbers and says, listen, you undid a lot of my stuff on day one, and look at the explosion that we've had in the 3 years since. So when President Biden said yesterday, I'm asking President Trump, come work with me, let's solve this together, you can imagine there's plenty of skepticism on the other side of the aisle.
All right, so what's next here? Does President Biden issue or even redact what he did on day one? Could Congress step in at this point? I mean, we are in March now. Election day is 8 months away.
Yeah, so you know the Senate deal fell apart. There is still a bipartisan deal that's
Where the fuck did that storage container come from?
Yeah.
It's like, like you can't just put that shit across the water. Like somebody dropped that shit right fucking there. Like, oh, you got razor wire here? Let me just put this fucking storage container.
That's one of the Amazon new millennial homes that everyone's trying to buy.
That's one of Elon Musk's prototypes.
Yeah, I got Mexicans on my roof. No. Yeah. The side by side of Trump and Biden right there just reminded me of the campaign, the movie. Like why aren't these guys in the same spot giving speeches back to back, just competing? That's what I want. That's what everyone wants.
Yeah, I want to put them in a ring. UFC fight. Clear them both. Let's go.
It's a mess. I love that movie. It's such a good movie.
You know, the Senate deal fell apart. There is still a bipartisan deal that's working in the House, whether they can get something done there. It's not going to be a huge, massive overhaul to the immigration system, but it may put some things in place that would stem the current flow in some ways. It's still doubtful. So there are murmurings that the White House is getting more serious about the president potentially taking executive action. He's got a ton of pressure from progressives in the far left of his party saying, no. What we're hearing is some of the stuff that President Trump was doing. You blasted that. You called it cruel. We are openly going to oppose you if you even think about taking any of those specific actions.
So do we not have detention camps anymore? I'm pretty like the kids in cages, the whole thing that Trump had going on. That has pretty much always been a thing. Biden had that going on too. Is that still going on?
How are
you going to keep that going on with all these people?
I don't think
freely
so.
coming and going.
I don't think they have like Remain in Mexico or any of that kind of stuff anymore. I know he repealed a bunch of that, like she was saying there at the end, due to pressure from progressives and other left-leaning people in Congress, that they just wanted to stop all that because it's racist.
Well, I mean, keeping people in cages, maybe not. I'm not saying it's not racist. That definitely. I'm just saying, like, maybe not do that, but like, take them back.
Do you think if a person invades your property that it's racist to put them in jail?
No, I'm saying take them back. Like, take them back to Mexico.
Back where you came from, boy.
Yeah, pretty much. But like keeping them in a cage, and then that's costing taxpayers money too. Honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's not an easy solution there. I would say, I guess my own position on immigration in the whole thing is I'm not really for open borders. I think that's stupid. But at the same time, like it's like private borders, right? Like just stay the hell off my property. And then if my neighbors want to take in a bunch of immigrants, does that really matter to me? Probably not. But once it starts encroaching on my life, I got private property, I got rights too. And so I think that's where I draw the line. It's not an easy answer. It's not an easy solution. I don't think we should have closed borders. Like Ron Paul always said, if you're going to have a wall, just remember that wall keeps people in just as much as it keeps people out. And so that's always something that I think about every time somebody talks about building a wall. At the same time, I also believe in the free flow of people. And so like you should have free movement of travel. You should go wherever you want to go. Then again, you know, the United States is a country of citizens. And so if the citizens decide we don't want no outsiders, you know, and we say this is our land, get the fuck out, that's their choice. So
yeah, I think if you're open borders, you have to first eliminate all these social safety nets that are in place that people coming over can take advantage of. You can't allow millions of people to partake in a system that they're not paying into, because then the system just collapses. It's not able to hold all of these people. And I think you got to eliminate the drug wars, specifically dealing with Mexico. You got to at least decriminalize or legalize a lot of things, because we're getting a lot of these drugs coming into America that are laced with like fentanyl or something like that. You know, it's causing a lot of deaths in America. And so you legalize that, you cut the cartel off right there, and probably you got to do something about minimum wage, because these people are working for pennies on the dollar, and you got to allow people to be competitive in the market, right? You got to allow Americans to be able to compete with laborers coming over. And I know people will say, well, they're not stealing the same jobs that Americans have, and they are at this point. Like, there's too many of them taking a lot of jobs, right? And you got to allow people to be able to competitively pay workers for their value.
I don't know. I was just so distracted from the beginning of what you were saying. You want to legalize fentanyl. That's what I heard.
No.
That's
No.
what?
Don't
No.
spin it like that. I mean, it's coming over. The drugs that are coming over are very concentrated because they got to get it over. And so when they cut it, it's bound to be laced with something. And, you know, people are now wanting fentanyl in some of these crazier places. Like, I don't know, have you seen Kensington? Did you see that Channel 5 documentary about Kensington and street where all the homeless people are doing trank and, like, fentanyl laced drug? Yeah, it's
You mean
bad.
like tranquilizers or like what?
They call
What
it
is-
trank. I think it is kind of some form of a tranquilizer, yeah. But it turns their skin to like, it's like rotting their skin. Like they get little scales. Looks like gray scales from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, don't forget the dollars lost on healthcare costs because illegals use the ER like a walk-in clinic and don't pay their bills. Yeah, true. I mean, like all of that contributes to it.
If you eliminate that though, then sure, maybe open borders, right? Or
Yeah.
and like ultimately we would like to have that area privatized, but you win some, you lose some, you can't have them all hassle off, whatever. I think you got to start undercutting these policies that are allowing these people to like take advantage of the American taxpayer.
No, I mean, there's a whole lot there. Kind of leads conveniently, so I'm going to take the segue while I have it. Discussing another government shutdown. Every couple of months it happens. We have another one of these shutdown debacles or one of these showdowns where Republicans say you got to cut spending, Democrats say you got to spend more money, and they can't come to an agreement, and then they wait until the very last minute, and then they pass some omnibus spending bill or some other type of continuing resolution or something like that. It happened again this week. It didn't make a lot of news because it wasn't really a high chance of a shutdown actually happening, but it did get close again. So there's a new temporary agreement that they came to. None of the agreements contain any military aid or other kind of aid. It's going to be continuing. This one's only going to last a couple weeks. We're going to have another showdown. I think that they said the first deadline was March 8th and the next one was March 20th, something like that. Historically, I thought this was interesting. I decided to look it up. When is the last time that the U.S. government actually passed a budget to avoid a shutdown on schedule, like on time? And it's only happened 4 times since 1977. Like every other time they've either been late or risked a shutdown because of the whole thing.
I could have sworn that we during Trump's administration, there was a couple times that a shutdown was threatened, and I thought he even shut down at one point.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a very famous video with Trump, Schumer, and Pelosi, and I think whoever the Republican leader at the time was, and Trump's like, I'll take the shutdown. I'll have a shutdown over this.
Some wall has been reinforced by our military. Our military has done a fantastic job.
I think American people recognize that we must keep government open, that a shutdown is not worth anything.
We do not want to shut down the government. You have called 20 times to shut down the government. You say, I want to shut down the government. We don't.
without
You know
saying
what?
to the
We need
public,
border security.
this
That's
isn't
what we're going to
true.
be talking about, border security. If we don't have border security, we'll shut down the government.
So yeah, it definitely happened. It happens every time. They always threaten it. Joe Biden, of course, says that this is a great agreement, but the job's not over. We have to, prevent the next shutdown. Chuck Schumer says, let's finish the job, and he's spent his whole time talking about bipartisanship. Mike Johnson, the new Republican House Speaker, he was spinning it as saying, like, well, this agreement's better than previous agreements because we're actually starting to break up bills. Where instead of having one big omnibus bill, we're splitting it up. That's what his spin is. Bob Goodman says, this is the failures of the past continued on. We've made no measurable difference as a Republican majority. So basically he's saying nothing changed here. It's the same shit it's always been. We just continue doing this. There's no hard strikes at government spending. A couple things that got through. Rand Paul got an amendment to curtail some of the Fed's power. So he got something that he wanted out of it and something I think that we could probably agree with. And then Josh Hawley, the opposite way, got an amendment to compensate radiation victims. I don't know what radiation they were suffering from or whatever. I cringe anytime government gives more money to more alleged victims.
Yeah. I think I'm a radiation victim. I think I need some compensation.
I've got 3 sources of radiation right here.
There you go. Yeah, right. Yeah, the 5Gs are getting into my skin. I don't know. Like, I see the strategy of breaking it up into like smaller bills, but what's the difference if you pass all of the bills?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter. You're still doing the same thing. So yeah, man, I don't know. We're spinning ourselves silly.
I think we are going to see a difference in foreign policy, though. There does seem to be, from my perspective, a lot more pushback about foreign aid and just funding wars for no reason. Like, they funded Ukraine early on, like initially. Now nobody wants to fund it.
Yeah, I think most of the public is against it. And then most of the public is even on just the Democrat side, they're not for this Israel war. And, they just dropped some humanitarian aid to Gaza. That video came out of tanks unloading on the Palestinians who were trying to get to some of the food and aid. And I think it killed like 102 Palestinians. Wow. So that's not good for Biden if he wants to keep that war up. I mean, the progressive left is not going to like that at all.
I don't know how they're looking on the Taiwan front. I haven't seen any movement on that. But yeah, definitely with the Ukraine stuff, I see the Republicans pulling back from that. With the Israel stuff, I see the Democrats pulling back from that. So I think isolating those bills specifically for foreign aid, I think that'll start to make a difference. When will we actually start making a difference when it comes to like the majority of the government's debt, like entitlement programs and stuff like that? Probably fucking never.
Yeah, probably never. Yeah. I mean, the China-Taiwan thing is kind of looming, right? That's one of those things that if it popped off tomorrow, that would just be absolutely insane to me. And the fact that China is like super they want to be the big boys of Asia. They want the entire South China Sea, or at least 90-something% of it. And they definitely want to unify China with Taiwan. It's just, it's one of those things that's going to be a regional challenge forever. And so we're the main power against them. I don't know. I've always said you got to put the power back into the country's hands, like Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, any country that has the power and capability to, economically and even militarily stand your ground in your own lands, because China fights they've fought the Philippines. They've killed Filipino military personnel battling over islands. They build their own islands. So that's one of those things that in order to keep trade routes open in the South China Sea, you got to do something about it. And I can see where you're coming from. And then a lot of people are like, libertarians are isolationists. Well, maybe, but at the same time, we like free trade, and we should do something to enable those other regional powers to be able to fight back against China, right?
Yeah, I'm not an isolationist when it comes to my neighbor. I just don't want him on my fucking property without my permission.
Right.
and
we're way the hell over there. We're way over there.
And I'm sure my neighbors feel the same way. It's like they don't want me coming over. Or if I do come over, I knock on the door. I don't just barge in the front door and tell them how to cook dinner.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No, but China's claim to the South China Sea is absolutely insane. Like I had to write, I wrote a paper on that back in law school, and it was like they have a historical claim to the South China Sea, but it's like, so fucking does everyone. They're like, we used all of the ocean.
No, the air over my house is my air, and you can't fucking have it.
You don't even breathe it.
Joey was asking, do we have faith in Grok breaking down the bills? If Grok is Speaker Johnson, no, I don't have any faith in them actually being able to. Apparently, they're breaking out the bills. They at least split them in half. Does that make a difference? Like Rob said, no. Like if they're just going to pass the bills anyway, then what the fuck's the point? Like,
but I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he knows that. Going into it, he's like, okay, yeah, because if that was his strategy and he's saying we are doing this so we can cut spending, and then you end up not doing, like, you know what you're doing. If you do it just to be kind of sneaky and be like, oh, we only passed a $20 million bill instead of a $180 million bill or $1 billion bill, then people are going to catch on.
Well, look here. This was from
wait, look at what we have here.
This is a Pew Research thing where they broke down. This is like the quote unquote mandatory spending that they have to spend each year is 62% of that budget. So this bottom section here, they don't even vote on this. This is Social Security, Medicaid, all that kind of shit. They're not allowed to vote on it because it's written into law that they have to spend, you know, whatever money they have to spend. So this 62% doesn't go anywhere. It just keeps going up and up and up. And then, you know, the interest on all this debt here is 10%. So 10% of that, again, not anything that can be negotiated. This is money that you borrowed. So you're talking 72% of the government's budget is non-negotiable. Like you have to pay it or you default. Like those are your choices. And then the 27%, this is what all of the debate is about, is what we're going to spend all this money on. So just kind of crazy there. A graphic I found interesting. Adding some more context to the story, the US debt continues to rise at a rate 1 trillion every 100 days. So pretty much every 3 months, we're hitting another $1 trillion in debt. As of January 4th, we just hit $34 million in debt. And then I pulled up a calculator to help me out. So in around April 13th-ish, we should hit 35 trillion. So right in time for tax season. In response to this, gold and Bitcoin, of course, are on the rise, often viewed as hedges against the dollar and inflation. Moody's Investors Service. Moody's does a lot of like the credit rating for a bunch of different agencies, but they also do a credit rating for the United States and all this stuff. And it says that the deficits will remain very large and significantly weaken debt affordability, the government's ability to pay back that debt. So they have downgraded the United States from stable to unstable. So all of these, you know, programs, we were talking earlier about how immigration plays a role in this because they go to hospitals and they use up resources and stuff that they don't pay for. Government steps in and pays for that. We're just wasting money, just spending it. But everything's cool, Rob. Doesn't matter. Because we could just MMT our ways out of this.
Yeah, Bitcoin is up a lot, and I think it also has to do with the El Salvador El Salvador president that spoke at CPAC.
Yeah,
and yeah, him, you know, and maybe even Javier Milei in Argentina talking about competitive currencies. Milei wants to switch to the dollar, but he's also talking about the Bitcoin and the one Bitcoin, the one, and yeah, that's what we should be talking about is competitive currencies.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Like, I'm not a fan of Bitcoin. I think it's stupid and a waste of money to spend something on a digital asset, but I'm not against, like, I don't want it illegal. If you want to put your money in Bitcoin, I say go for it. Like, the more currencies competing, the better for everybody. Competition is good for everyone. It doesn't matter, like, what it is. So, yeah, like, I can't think of anything where competition wouldn't be good. Mm-hmm. You know, and adding to all this debt, some more added context to that story is there was a report that came out recently from the Daily Mail. Let me pull this up over here.
Oh, the Daily Mail.
You know, Daily Mail is kind of weird, right? Because it's like, it's a tabloid, but you get stories here that you wouldn't get anywhere else. And usually what I've noticed with the Daily Mail is they'll go into like deep detail about every little thing. So this report from the Daily Mail says that that America's 125 million guaranteed income giveaway. So it's obviously a headline that's going to catch, or it's a title that's going to catch your eyes. But this is what they're talking about here. So basically, what they're talking about is when you total it across everything. For Atlanta, for example, near me, 275 people receive about $500 every year. And so that totals to 1.7 million. So the 125 million that they're getting is nationwide, but this is just another thing that gets added on to the debt. is all of this money that we give out in entitlement programs, welfare, whatever it is. This is not Medicaid. This is cash. This is like just money in your bank account. A stimulus check from the government is basically what it is.
I don't think that's quite that number because I just multiplied.
Whatever.
I just did the math.
I'm just going off their headlines. I'm not doing the math.
That math in Atlanta is like 137,000
per month.
Oh, is it per month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is that? Times
12. Yep, that's about it. It's 1.6
Okay.
1.65.
And what they say, 1.7. So
1.7, yeah.
Not far. Anyway, one mother of three in Washington, D.C. spent more than half of a $10,000 lump sum payment on a luxury holiday vacation to Miami, along with a new wardrobe for her children and a glow up for herself. I guess that's her glow up. I don't fucking know what a glow up is.
Yeah, I mean, she's glowing up. Look, and I almost would rather my money go to her than Ukraine. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
I don't know. But honestly, I'm on the fence. If we gotta fund, what's her name? I say we fund Kenethia. I say we fund her and her glow up and all three of her kids indefinitely forever, and we get rid of the spending in Ukraine. I think that's a solid policy choice.
But this is all it's just one more fucking thing that's just gonna keep driving us down. Just giving away all this free money. It's not free, but they think it is.
It's the people's money. And that's like that guy, I forgot his name. I think he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, or maybe he was on Tucker Carlson's podcast, talking about how much the government spends on just soda and like SNAP and food stamp programs. And it's like all of that money's going to to buy sodas and to buy unhealthy foods, and people use that money, and it's kind of perpetuates unhealthiness, overweight people, and gives money to big, huge corporations.
You know, more important than that to me is like, you want all this free healthcare, but then you want to eat fucking, look, I like Thin Mints. I got some right here. I've been eating them. It's great. I like Chinese food. That was what I had for dinner tonight. You know, I eat unhealthy as fuck. I've got here. This is all just within arm's reach. I've got a big ass thing of Mountain Dew.
But it's with your money. It's with your money.
Right.
It's not with everyone's money.
But you know, they want everybody else's money to have this lavish lifestyle that I lead.
And again,
and then
why
they go to the
why can't they?
hospital? If I'm not gonna get sick and go to some hospital, I'm just gonna fucking die like a man. Okay.
Yeah. Well, why shouldn't they have Mountain Dew, right? You know, if Ukraine can get all these bombs and aid and whatnot, why can't Cathedra have a little Mountain Dew? I support her glow up 100%. I don't see what the problem is actually. I think I don't know, man. Hey, look, money's being spent.
Yeah. Might as well get you some.
And that's what their whole mentality is.
Yeah.
I think
That's how I felt during COVID. It was like, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm not gonna. What am I gonna do? Take the money out and throw it in the trash? Do my part for inflation? Like what?
Yeah. In 2008, when the banks got the bailouts, what did they do with the money? They put it away. All the bigwigs kept their raises, and then they laid off everyone else.
That's happening a lot right now, man. I know of a lot of big companies that are laying off. You know, it's not just the stuff you hear in the news too. There's a bunch of companies that are laying off people, and some of it has to do with AI. Some of it has to do with just not being they've overextended themselves. In debt or whatever it is. It's going to get rough out there before it gets better. That's all I know.
I think they should put the Neuralink into all of the migrants and put the AI program in there and let them work. Like, I think that's...
what does that do?
I mean, that's going to be the closest we're going to get to everything being robotic and closer to a utopia, Tim. You know,
why them? Why can't I have the robot job?
That's their ticket. That's the ticket in. They get the Neuralink and the mark of the beast.
Instead of like gaining citizenship by joining the military, you subject yourself to Elon Musk's human experiments.
Military, McDonald's, they can do whatever they can do, and we benefit off of that work. That's the plan.
Well, according to Democrats, that's what happens right now. They just risk deportation.
Yeah, but they will be under the Neuralink control.
Joey's got the solution. Just $7,000 an hour minimum wage, or you're a racist.
I mean, He's got a valid point. I don't see why we should not be making $7,000 an hour.
Well, if you could ever pass the fucking bar, you would.
Yeah, I know. Probably not even that much. Honestly, I still wouldn't make as much as the Island Boys or the Cash Me Outside girl or about a million
system is rigged.
OnlyFans creators.
Completely unjust.
I'm going to have to start doing legal practice on OnlyFans if I want to make any sort of money to buy a house in my generation.
Let's talk about this guy. U.S. airman dies
No.
after setting himself on fire outside the Israel embassy in Washington. This soldier, he live streamed this event. He did it on Twitch, I'm pretty sure. In the video, you could hear him saying things like he'll no longer be complicit in genocide. Once he set himself on fire, he just kept yelling, "Free Palestine, free Palestine."
Hot, 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 hot.
Yeah, he's very hot. He was a cyber defense operations specialist on active duty since May 2020. He had a long history on Reddit before this. Well, we'll get into that in a minute. But what do you think, Rob? Did you see the video? What did you think?
Yeah, no, I saw the video. That is it's a very tragic video. The sad thing is that the war is going to keep going on no matter what he does, no matter what kind of attention he's brought to Palestine, the Israel-Palestine conflict. And I was thinking exactly what you said. You know, it's from the stuff that he's seen. And Joey, you're not funny at all in the chat
No,
saying
that was
talk about a
hilarious.
glow up. Yeah.
That was hilarious.
I know. I'm just messing with you. That was funny. But what's not funny is is how serious this actually is. I mean, he did bring attention to it. Biden sent some aid over there, but at the end of the day, this is what these guys are going through. What he was in the Air Force, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's probably helping out with droning, different kind of drone missions and shit. Dude, like, no telling what he's seen and no telling what these people go through on a daily basis, and they have to go through it with it because they're orders. And that's it's unfortunate. There's nothing much else to be said that hasn't already been said. It's sad. He's young. I mean, this whole conflict is wrong.
So it sounds like you're probably on the other side of this argument, because there's two I've noticed that there's been two reactions to the whole thing. There's been the people who are kind of saying what you're saying. This is tragic thing that happened to this guy. It highlights, some of the problems with military and what we're doing over there and our involvement overseas and all this kind of stuff. And then there's another side that says, this guy's a fucking idiot. He wasted his fucking life. And now that they're delving deeper into his background, the sympathy for me is waning on the guy. But, at the same time, I can't help but realize, like, he's a human being. He obviously was dealing with a bunch of shit. Like, people don't commit suicide who have things going on in their lives. If you have something to look forward to, then whatever. So obviously this guy was suffering for something, but there's people who are looking at him like a martyr, which I'm sure is what he wanted to be recognized as. And there's other people pointing out, you just wasted your fucking life.
I mean, maybe he swayed a few people. You never know. Maybe he enlightened a few people. But I think two things can be true at the same time. I mean, is it the smartest thing to set yourself on fire for a cause? No. Especially one that's going to roll along, like, unbothered at all. But at the same time, he did bring attention to it. This is like a kind of an Eastern protest tactic. I think I remember seeing like a Hindu or a Buddhist extremist set himself on fire.
Yeah, those are the famous ones. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day. And, I don't know. Like, I don't think he's an idiot. I think you have 22 troops a day that are killing themselves from suicide, even more now, dealing with PTSD, and America doesn't have the infrastructure to support its troops that are fighting all of these endless wars, if I'm being serious. But then on another note, on a lighter note, I would rather people do this than block highways. That's just like I don't ruin my day. I don't know. But the actual video was hard to watch. He took out that can, looked like about a gallon thermos, and
Looks
just
like a coffee cup.
Yeah,
Like a coffee can. Yeah.
Yeah, poured it on himself, and then looked like he had a little trouble lighting himself on fire at first. And some guy was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" It's like, "Hey, can I help you?" But what bothered me about the video too was the cop that just had his gun on him the entire time. It's like, dude, he is on fire. You could be doing something to try to put it out.
So the response to that I saw was like, people were saying like, he was in uniform, so you don't know if he has his own weapon. You don't know if he has a bomb on. You don't know like how far he's going from it. You could say after the fact that like, oh, this is stupid. Like he was obviously like in need of help and whatever. In the moment, I don't fucking know. Some crazy guy shows up and lights himself on fire. Who knows what he wants to do?
Yeah, maybe, but
maybe you go try to put him out and he gives you a hug and you die too.
Yeah. No, I could see that. I could see that happening and see that reasoning. But at the same time, he's on fire, standing still, yelling "Free Palestine" in front of the Israeli consulate. So, like, given those context clues, the guy's probably protesting and lighting himself on fire. Tactic that hasn't been seen in a while, but you know what? It's still out there, and he's bringing it back. I don't know. The gun just seemed unnecessary there. Whenever there were people going, "I don't need a gun. I need a fire extinguisher," and he did die, succumb to the injuries after this too. So
You know, when I was looking up some more context for the story, I came across some Reddit posts from him that we're going to get to. But first, I just want to say this guy's stealing other people's ideas, not only from the Middle East, but apparently a person set themselves on fire outside the Israeli consulate in Atlanta in December. How come we didn't hear about that?
oh yeah.
No one fucking said anything about that. I just learned this today because I was looking up some other stuff about the story and it just popped up. But
Who the
kinda,
folk is that guy?
yeah, I don't know, but apparently no one cared about him setting himself on fire. Anyway, there were some Reddit posts that later came out about this guy, about some of the things that he had said on Reddit and some other places. What's his name? The Intercept. I think this used to be Glenn Greenwald. His old outlet put out this story. So some of the stuff that I pulled out of here, some stuff that he says, you and I might agree with. He says America isn't defending Ukraine; it's competing with Russia for control of Ukraine. That was kind of his takeaway as far as our involvement in Ukraine. I thought that was pretty interesting. I kind of agree with you, on that point. But then some of his other posts later on get a little more crazy. He says, I've been complicit in violent domination across the world. Again, something that I have to disagree with. I'll never get this blood off my hands. Obviously, a comment highlighting his mental health and his distress there. With whatever he's seen or whatever he's been involved with. But then he goes on to say, there are no Israeli civilians or tourists who have no part in oppression in Palestine. Israel is a settler, colonist, apartheid state, and they're on stolen land, which is basically what this highlighted section here says. There are no Israeli civilians or tourists who have no part in oppression. Basically, everybody who lives in Israel or visits Israel is guilty of the genocide in Palestine. The idea doesn't make any sense and betrays lack of understanding of what the oppression in Palestine even is. Israel is a settler, colonist, apartheid state. All of its residents and their immediate forebears have moved there specifically to settle on stolen land. So has a very narrow view, in my opinion, of what the hell Israel even is or what the involvement is there. And then there's other posts that go on to say, there's one down here where he talks about whiteness erases culture, basic leftist bullshit. But he has a long, these are just some snippets from it. The Intercept article goes into a lot more detail and describes all of his different things. It goes through his whole journey, basically. Talks about, it follows him on LinkedIn, and then it goes through his Reddit history where he starts off talking about, first joining the Air Force and how excited he was, and then how his perspective on everything twisted. And then he started sounding more like Hassan Piker towards the end of it. And then eventually killed himself. And like Joey said earlier, killed himself for the current thing. Dude died from the current thing. That's where I end up on the whole thing. Is at first when I see the story, I'm like, this guy was obviously dealing with some mental health issues, some tragic thing that was going on. But then he just went fucking crazy and killed himself for nothing. And people are making him out to be like this hero and this martyr and somebody we should look up to. I saw, when I was doing research for this, I saw other Reddit posts that were popping up in my searches that were like, I can't stop thinking about this video. I'm worried I might do something similar. Oh, don't fucking do that, dude. Don't waste your fucking life. Don't fucking do it. His death is not going to change anything. Everything is going to continue on the same. Like you said, there might be some people here or there that see this video and they say, oh my God, this kind of opened my eyes to what's going on over there. But I don't think the war is going to end anytime soon. This isn't even America. We might be giving support in some ways, but Israel is fully capable of dealing with Palestine on their own. And they're going to keep fucking doing it because that's what's been going on there for thousands of years or hundreds of years or whatever. I'll drink. Thank you.
No, yeah, they definitely are going to keep doing it. I mean, he has some valid points about, Israel being on settled land. Like, it's not only are they on settlements
He called it
with
stolen lands.
Well, yeah, and like Joey said in the chat, point out a part on the map where land isn't stolen. Like, this has been happening for thousands of years. But my main point is they keep building settlements and intertwine. Like, if you take a look at the map of Israel and Palestinian settlements, it's interwoven with each other to the point where what used to be a solution, the two-state solution, it's almost not even feasible because Israel has intertwined itself so much within Palestine. And then also there's different roads. You got to go in and out through Israeli checkpoints. So yeah, I see where he's coming from completely on there. And then he does lose me whenever he talks about like like you said, Hassan Piker, kind of like white people this, white people that kind of stuff. But I can see arguments from either side on this one. But at this point, I think I'm leaning towards, after seeing that video of Israel just kind of mowing down people with tanks trying to get aid, I'm like, you can't really defend that. And then this guy obviously has done something in his time as a airman for the Air Force. He's obviously done something like drone bomb some like schoolyard or something like that, like to make him feel bad.
I'm less convinced of that because if like from what I understand, he was a cybersecurity like intelligence officer.
Okay.
Like that was his whole thing. So I think, when you work somewhere, you have access to things that maybe you should or shouldn't have, like colleagues share with you or something like that. I'm sure that he's probably seen some things that we haven't seen. His direct involvement in it, I'm not convinced.
Maybe he sees all the video, like every single. Maybe he was the one that had to look at all the drone killings.
I don't know. I don't know what that has to do with cybersecurity, though. You're dealing with people trying to hack your shit.
Got to keep it locked down. You got to keep them from hacking.
So you watch videos of shit we do. I don't know.
I mean, you look at the Julian Assange when he released that wiki. Well, not. I guess it was Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning via WikiLeaks when they released all those videos of the U.S. going brazy.
Yeah.
Going brazy.
That's what I mean. Like maybe he has access, but I think what Joey just said, like he spent too much time on the internet. I don't know. That's my read of the whole thing. I could be wrong. Who fucking knows? Maybe we'll find out in a couple weeks, like how deeply he was actually involved in some of this stuff.
He got super blackpilled too. So yeah. I mean,
yeah. He got super black too. He got burned.
I mean, and I can see how you could do that if you really put yourself in the shoes of these people, and how that can get depressing. And that's why you got to look at it as a whole, I guess. Maybe he thought that because he was a part of the military that he was a part of the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And like at that point, like if you're in the military right now, like what are the punishments for leaving the military? They fucking arrest you and you spend some time in jail? Like, is that probably the worst possible scenario? Like,
I think so.
if you want to get out of the military, like, I'm sure that you could fake something.
Just refuse to take an experimental vaccine.
Right. You can do something like that, though. Like that's what I'm saying is you can come up with some kind of reason to get kicked out. You could just not show up to work for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like they're going to kick you out eventually. There's a whole bunch of other things you can do rather than set yourself on fire. Anyway, so this was a story that I originally grabbed from InfoWars, actually. I got tired of looking at Drudge and some other shit. And I was like, let's go see what InfoWars has to say. Listen, there's a lot of shit on InfoWars, but every once in a while you find a nice gem. And that's what I think I got with this story here.
He's kind of retarded.
He's kind of retarded, but you know what? He's right more often than he's wrong.
Yeah.
But anyways, I kept the article because it wasn't an InfoWars original. It was something that they shared from Zero Hedge. This was a California sheriff who was going off on radical progressives for the explosive crime rate that California has been experiencing.
Good morning. Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff. We are here today because California public safety is in crisis. Crime is steadily on the rise, and our public safety policy is one of the worst, if not the worst, in the nation. I want to make this clear, and I want there to be no mistake in what I am saying. This is not by accident. The driving force in our crisis is a radical, progressive agenda fraudulently called criminal justice reform. This is nothing short of a sick and twisted social experiment where law enforcement is the bad guy and criminals are somehow victims of society and not responsible for their actions, their crimes, or accountable to their countless victims. While we suffer every day with rampant theft causing our small businesses to close and our large box stores to move out of state, our supermajority of lawmakers sit here in their guarded tower, oblivious to what is going on in their communities, experiencing drastic increases in all crimes, particularly violent crimes. Over the past 5 years, law enforcement has been unable to get our progressive left majority to even consider any new law or modification to an existing law that would increase punishment or send criminals to prison. Reality has gone completely upside down to the point our governor, our lawmakers, and our attorney general refuse to prosecute criminals, to include those criminals committing crimes with guns, and instead have dedicated their efforts to disarm and remove constitutional protections of self-defense from law-abiding Californians.
That was a pretty good point. Talking about violent crimes and taking away the people's and the store owners' right to protect themselves constitutionally. However, like I would like to read what kind of laws that these guys were trying to pass. Like if you're trying to boost prison sentences for non-violent drug offenders or something like that, and it's tied in the same bill, I could see why they wouldn't pass something like that.
Yeah, we don't have to watch all of it. Like, I think the beginning part was really the part that caught my attention, where he was talking about how, like, this is not a choice. It's not some uncontrollable thing. The fact is that they're letting out violent criminals. And I think there is a difference, a distinction to be made there. You know, you and I would probably disagree with something that he said in there about how, you know, they're legalizing drugs or whatever. You and I might disagree with one of those parts. But one thing that I think that we would agree with is that people who go in and brazenly shoplift should probably be fucking arrested and should probably be tried and should have some kind of punishment for that. And in California especially, you see that that's not the case. Either they get ignored right away, like do you remember that video came out a couple months ago in Banana Republic or something like that? They just walked in, took everything right off the front shelves, and then just walked right out the fucking building and nobody could stop them. There's tons and tons and tons of those stories. And this is just like, I think that it's a sign. Like, yeah, you and I might agree, like this has been something that's been a problem for a long time, but I think it's a sign that people are starting to notice and they're starting to be fed up with the shit, and maybe there's a change coming. What you're getting at is, I think you got to be careful. You know, I think you got to be careful not to push things too far in the wrong direction. That everything's a crime and everybody can be arrested for any reason. But at the same time, like property crimes, like those are pretty important. You know, people in California and other left-leaning individuals, they might not see property as worth somebody's life or whatever, but that's someone's livelihood, you know? So
Right.
I don't know. It's to me, it was interesting because you don't really see this a lot. Usually, you know, sheriffs and other people in California, this is what they want. They're fine with this. This is okay. And this was an instance where somebody's pointing it out, and in my opinion, rightly points out that this is not by accident. This is a choice.
Yeah. And so close to LA too. This Riverdale County, whatever he said. Yeah, it's right to the east of LA, so pretty close to the belly of the beast there. Really, for all progressive policies. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I just wanted to point that as like I always like to look at that before I'm like, yeah, this guy's completely right, because he might have been pushing for jailing of nonviolent offenders as well. But yeah, releasing criminals, and obviously California's got a problem with this petty theft and even break-ins in cars and stuff now, like from San Francisco all the way down to the border.
You know, I don't know. Like you said, I want to be supportive initially, but, you know, I have to recognize what this guy's saying, that, you know, it's not a choice. This is something that's dictated through policy, and California gets what it fucking deserves.
Yeah, and like good on stores for taking business elsewhere. That's the only thing you can do if you constantly get robbed. What else are you supposed to do?
Well, you could take the path of Milei over here, and you could say, you know, we're going to make changes with or without you. Kind of like a better news story, I guess. Milei recently came out in his, I guess what you would equivocate to the State of the Union speech, I guess. He was speaking to lawmakers in Argentina.
Yeah, he dropped like 10 principles for his new economic policy reforms, right?
Yeah, he did. I didn't read all of them. I was just reading what was in the articles. But, you know, he was saying, you know, we're going to do good. We're going to make change for this country for the good, with or without the support of our political leaders. He says, if you're looking for conflict, you will have conflict. And then he goes on to say, he's asking the citizens there for patience, saying it will be some time before we can perceive the fruit of our economic reorganization and the reforms we're implementing. Currently, there are more than 60 lawsuits in process by labor unions, NGOs, non-government organizations, and there's also massive protests in Argentina related to what he's been doing lately in slashing government. A conversation that I wanted to have with you about this, I don't know, like we get deep into libertarian debate and thought sometimes, right? And one of the things that I used to hear a lot is you can't force freedom on people. You can't like just come in and like Ron Paul used to talk about this too. He's like, just because I get elected president doesn't mean that I can fix the country overnight. Not every power is invested with the president. Looking at Milei, I know it's not America, but the guy is just like, you know what? Y'all don't want to come with me? Fuck you. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to make you free whether you want to be or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the same page there. I think from what you're saying, I can gather that we're kind of thinking he might be a little bit too overzealous and trying to push this thing, but he's fighting something that's been a socialist machine for decades now. So how do you combat that? Is it these overwhelming, sweeping new policies without any kind of pushback? Like, I don't know what the best thing is. I don't think it's forcing new policies against the whole country. I think he might be showing some signs of like a tyrannical leader, right? Like, it scares me a little bit. It does scare me a little bit, because then you look at his policy on abortion. I think he wants to outlaw abortion completely, which that means enforcing that law as well. And then I'm pretty sure he's pretty pro-Israel, so I don't know what kind of help he wants to offer in that arena. So I don't think he's completely anti-war there.
It would be hard for me to imagine that somebody who's a hardcore libertarian, an anarcho-capitalist as he calls himself,
right,
would support foreign aid. That surprised me.
Right. That's why some of these things I'm like, okay, I want to wait and see how the policy shakes out, how he, I guess, divvying out these new economic policies. If people are going to oppose him in doing so, it's like you said, it's about voluntarism, it's about consent, it's not about force, which is a main part of libertarianism.
Yeah, to be fair, like I think a lot of these protests, like if you look at this one here, this is the big one that they show. The union is hosting this huge protest or whatever outside the Argentinian capital or whatever. But who's starting this? This is the union. They want benefits for their employees. Specifically, they want government benefits because, Milei's not trying to take away private enterprises' benefits. He's trying to restrict what government's involvement is in all of this shit. And so, to be fair to Milei for a second, I think like a lot of what he's targeting is good. I'm curious, like, what happens if we got what amounts to a libertarian dictator? And that's kind of what the conversation I wanted to have with you is like, I don't know how American libertarians, like I know a lot of them, I don't know how they would react to massive protests in the street saying that they're taking away our livelihood. Like if you look at like some of the comments that are on this article about this union protest, they're talking about how they're going to have a lower standard of living. They're worried about, their future. This is not what Argentina's about. They say a lot of like stuff that you would hear in America too, from labor unions here. Like these are, government is helping us because they're supporting our minimum wage and minimum standards of quality of life and this kind of bullshit. If this was happening in America and we had a libertarian president, I could very easily see a lot of libertarians, especially the more hardcore libertarians, saying like, this is unacceptable. Like, he's forcing freedom. You're not supposed to do that. Like you were saying, consent. Where do you draw that line? Because if the government is benefiting these unions through money or whatever the fuck it is, like healthcare or whatever, that's taking from one and giving to the other. That's just as much in violation. But I don't know how people are going to react to this. One thing I do know is that whatever happens in Argentina is going to be a reflection on libertarians moving forward. And if it's successful, it will be a positive thing. And if there is any negative to it at all, it will be blown up as this is why you can't do libertarian policy.
Yeah. I mean, he even said it's, for a while, it's going to be rough. And that's what Ron Paul has always said. It's like the hangover theory, right? You can't keep drinking. You have to stop at some point. And when you stop, it's going to be bad. And here, I'm not sure how the unions necessarily work in Argentina and how much the government was involved. If I had to guess, it was to a big extent. So, like, if it was done like that in America, I mean, it's a policy change by a government that was duly elected. That's how I would say. But, what kind of force are we talking about? If it's just a policy change and the guy got elected and your union is benefited from the government and run by the government, then that's going to be a positive policy change.
Yeah, we got to put a call out there because you and I have talked off air about, having guests on, and this is one guest. This is the one that comes to mind right now anyway, of a guest that I would like to have on about this kind of subject. Somebody who's involved in Argentina that knows what's going on and understands the situation on the ground and how things have changed. Because I was trying to look up how have things changed since Milei's been in office. What is the standard of living or whatever? What is the situation on the ground there? Like, are people seeing actual benefits from this, or is the media reports that I'm seeing basically saying that everything's negative?
Yeah.
Is that true? Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, he's only been in office for like a month. It's what I was telling that dumbass on Twitter the other day. It's like he took a screenshot from the article that I posted and said, well, inflation's up under Milei, and put the numbers there. And Milei has only been in there for 1 month, and it's a 12-month
Did
cycle.
he say 211%? Was that it?
Yeah, something like that. I don't
because
know.
that was December.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because I've read a bunch of articles today that were saying that 211% number was from December.
Yeah.
It doesn't
No.
take into account everything that he's done since he's
No,
been
this
in
one
office.
it said it was up since he's been in office in January, but that's not a reflection whatsoever in the inflation rate on what he's done, because he was literally in office for less than a month when that number came out. So I think you got to give him more time. This is only his second month in office, and right now things are gonna look bad because you're taking out a whole system to rebuild a new one. So it's gonna be bad. But then when people go, oh wait, I could just get another job. I don't know what he's gonna do with pensions and stuff. That's a whole nother thing. It's like, what are you gonna do with government pensions that were promised to these people who worked years and years in that industry?
Yeah, I'm not sure. In his speech, Milei was saying that he seeks to forge a new social contract that includes a non-negotiable balanced budgets and inviolable private property and historic reductions in government spending, reducing it to 25% GDP. For reference, America's GDP spending is about 23%, something like that. So trying to get it in line with the rest of the world, I guess.
I mean, it's a positive move, but you're going to have backlash whenever people start feeling it, dude. You're just going to have it.
Yeah, and I just wonder, I don't think that we're close to a libertarian revolution in America. I think we want to think that we are, but we're not near where Argentina was before they elected Milei. I don't think that we're that far down yet, and I'm curious, let's say we get our libertarian, let's say Rec or whoever the hell gets elected as president. There's going to be a lot of people, I think, that even on our own side that will criticize that person, whoever it is, and say they're doing things too quickly, they're doing things too abruptly. Look at all these people suffering. We have to worry about them. We have to worry about this, that, the other. I'm not confident.
And then again, I don't know, because I felt like I could tell a stark difference in when Trump left office and when Biden took office, and after the Fed started printing a shit ton of money for COVID and Ukraine and everything, in the market and just buying things and the housing market. I feel like there was almost an immediate negative impact on everyone's livelihood. And so maybe America's not that far down the rabbit hole where some positive policy changes like this would affect people's pocketbooks in a heavy way. But to be honest, if we can feel that immediate difference, then I think we could feel a positive difference slowly, but with the right changes.
But hey, man, it was a thing, right?
I like the new setup. It seems more official. So yeah, no, that was definitely a thing. And we covered a lot of meaningful topics this afternoon. And I don't know if I'm black-pilled after this episode, but I think I need to go decompress a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, we talked about the guy who set himself on fire, World War III.
True.
A lot of heavy stuff in 2024, and we're only a little over 2 months into it.
Hey, don't worry, because this week is the State of the Union address. That's happening this week. It's going to happen while we're gone. We're going to be back sometime during the weekend. Look, Rob and I, we've established this new thing. We don't fucking care. Sometime during the weekend. Okay?
Yeah.
Just fucking pay attention. Follow on Twitter. Join the Discord. I'll put notifications there as soon as I get thumbnails made and all that bullshit. But it's going to be what it is. Audit check. How many drinks have you had, Rob?
0 today.
I'm building a motherfucking pyramid over here. Those are all empty. This is my drink.
This is your pregame for Rocket League.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thanks for joining us.
Yep. Follow me on Twitter, @VincentComedy. I'm back, and we should be getting college football extravaganza rolling up soon. For those college football fans out there, it's on the Swampcast network as well. All right, yeah, we'll be back next week.
All right, we'll see you then. Adios, guys.